All right, we're getting back to Yahshua's commandments, expounded. Now, this is one of the greatest lessons in all of Scripture in all actuality, because these are the teachings and instructions of our Messiah. You know, when he speaks of, if you love me, keep my commandments, these are the commandments that he's speaking of. You know, as we go through them, you know, as the ones that we've been through, as well as the ones that we're going to go through, you're going to see some of them are quite difficult to do in the flesh. You know, this is why, you know, we're called to be fathered from above, that is, born again, become spiritual beings, because, trust me, you're going to need the Ruach in order to do some of these. You know, such as turning the other cheek, and, you know, and when men revile you, not to turn back on them and revile them and return, and so on and so forth. You know, these things are unnatural. You know, so therefore you have to become supernatural. You know, and Yah has allowed for us to do that. He has shown us the way that we may become supernatural, so supernatural that we live for an eternity. Amen?
Praise Yah.
All right, with that being said, let's jump back into it. We left off at number 56, and I'm going to read number 56. It's taken from Matthew 18:10. It says, "Take heed that ye despise not one of these little ones. For I say unto you, that in heaven their angels do always behold the face of my Father which is in heaven." And in number 57, I'm going to read 57, 58, and 59 together, because they come one after another. And it says, "If thy brother shall trespass against thee, go tell him his fault between thee and him alone. And if he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother." In verse 16, "If your brother will not hear you, take with thee 1 or 2 more, that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established. If he shall neglect," verse 17, "if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it unto the church or ecclesia. But if he neglects to hear the church or ecclesia, let him be unto thee as a heathen man and a publican." Okay? And number 60, Matthew 18:22. You know, essentially says, you know, forgive your brethren 490 times. You know, 70 times 7. All right, now, that being said, you know, seeing that there's so many within this chapter of chapter 18 of Matthew, I figured, you know, why not just do look at the whole chapter? Because within this chapter, we find our rules of engagement. You know, this teaches us, you know, how to deal with one another when we have a problem with one another. You know, and this is real important, you know, and it's real important to remember, because these rules of engagement, you know, these commandments that Yahshua gave us, they really will cut out so much toil and headache and heartache, so on and so forth, from out of Yahshua's body, if people would just only practice them. If people would just only practice them. See, but the problem is, you know, like I said, many of these things are hard to do in the natural. You know, but I'm here to tell you, you know, these that we're about to go over, they're very hard to do in the natural, even though they sound very simple. You know, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. And if he hear thee, thou shalt gain thy brother. If thy brother will not hear you, take 1 or 2 more, so on and so forth. You know, sound real simple, you know, but much easier said than done, I assure you. I've done it. Much easier said than done. And I'm here to tell you, one of the most difficult things it is for a person to do on this planet is to sit down across from someone and talk to them about how you've been offended by them knowing they don't want to hear what you have to say. Now, it may sound like a simple thing, but I'm here to tell you, it's a real difficult thing. It's difficult, you know, even for a parent to speak to a child, you know, in some cases. You know, but they get used to that real quick. But, you know, but what about if you're the child and need to speak to the parent? I mean, because, you know, wrong come upon everyone. You know, no one's immune from wrongdoing. Amen. You know, only the Messiah was without error. All the rest of us, we're not without error, and we're gonna err. So, you know, but when we do, or when we're erred against, there's rules of engagement. There's things and a manner in which we're to go about this, and we're going to get into that, some of that today. We're going to take Matthew from the top. Have my first reader read Matthew 18 verses 1 through 5, please.
At the same time came the disciples unto Yahshua, saying, Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And Yahshua called a little child unto him, and set him in the midst of them, and said, Verily I say unto you, except ye be converted, and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Whosoever therefore shall humble himself as this little child, the same is greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whosoever shall receive one such little child in my name receiveth me.
Okay, and we went over this one the last lesson. Actually, this was the I believe the last commandment we went over when we last done the series of Yahshua's commandments. This is where we stopped off at. Except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of Elohim. It was an equivalent to it, you know. But you know, this is real important to understand because, you know, here it is, the disciples were asking a question, who is the greatest in the kingdom of Elohim? You know, and Yahushua, you know, called a little child unto him. He didn't call Cephas. He didn't call Yochanan or John. He didn't call Luke. Well, I don't know if Luke was there, but he didn't call James. You know, he called a little child unto him and set him in the midst of them. That's saying something, is it not? Yes. And he told him, he said, Verily I say unto you, except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of Elohim. You know, so we have to become converted. This word converted actually, you know, speaks to turning around and going the other way. See, this word converted speaks to turning from wickedness and going towards righteousness. You know, so except ye be converted and become as little children. So now, not only do you have to turn from your wicked ways and go towards righteousness, that's just part of it. And become as little children. Ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Okay, so you got to turn from your wicked ways and you got to become as a little child. Now, what does he mean by becoming as a little child? Well, when you look at little children, when you look at even an infant, and this word here can mean infant. When you look at a little child, they're totally dependent upon their parents. Not 90%, but 100%. Am I right, brother? They're 100% dependent upon their parents. See, and this is what the Messiah wants of us. He wants us to turn from our wicked ways and become 100% dependent upon Elohim.
Hallelujah.
You know, when a little infant is hungry, it doesn't raise its hand. It doesn't walk up to you. You know, it doesn't tug on your shirt. It just starts crying. See, that's the thing about infants. They don't know how to talk. You know, but just because they don't know how to talk, don't mean the parent don't know how to understand.
That's right.
See, and when they begin to cry, the parent begins to seek into the situation and circumstances and try to find out what the problem is. Even though the baby can't tell what the problem is, if it's hungry or if it's wet or if it's dirty, you know, the parent comes and begins to investigate the situation. You understand? See, and that's what we want. We want to become as little children, so when we begin to cry out, Yah comes and investigate the situation.
Yeah.
See, because when he comes and investigates the situation, even as a good parent, wherever he finds that wrong to be, he corrects.
Hallelujah.
See, and that's a very important concept. See, but if we don't become his little children, then we miss out on him correcting the situation or circumstance.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we want to turn from our wicked ways. We do try. I take my hat off to those who do. You know, many do try to turn from their wicked ways, but they don't want to become his little children. They want to insist that they're grown. See, but you can't be grown and get into the kingdom of Elohim. You got to become as a little child, and then you have to regrow. You have to mature all over again.
Yes.
You have to start this thing all over again. So that means you have to go back. Now, he's, of course, you know, even as what was my man Nicodemus was saying, well, Master, how can you be born again? Can you go back in your mother's womb? No, he's talking about your mindset. See, you can be born again in your mind. See, in your mind, you can become totally dependent upon Yahweh Elohim.
Yeah.
You can become totally dependent upon your El. So, you know, here it is. I need money. I start crying to Yah, hey, Yah, I need money. You know, I need money. See, but instead of waiting for Yah to come to the situation and circumstance and correct it and fix you up like a little babe, folks want to be grown. I need money, so I'm going to give me a job. Maybe y'all didn't want a job for you. Maybe he was going to provide for you some other kind of way.
Yeah.
But you grown. You grown. I know what I need. I know what I need.
Right.
But I'm going to tell you, that little infant don't know what it needs. The little children don't know what they need. They know what they want.
Yeah.
They know what they like.
Yeah.
Give any one of them some candy and then give them a bowl of vegetables afterwards and put them next to each other and see which one they want.
Yeah.
They want what's good to them. They don't want what's good for them.
Definitely.
See, but until we become as little children and allow our parents, our Heavenly Father, to give us what's good for us, rather than what's good to our desires, to our wants, to our taste buds, we're going to continue to find ourselves mixed up, messed up, in situations and circumstances that he never intended for us if we had just waited on him. But I've been crying for a long time, Pastor Obadiah. I've been crying for a long time. I really do need money. But then maybe you need to cry a little louder. Make sure you don't convert it. Because that was the first part. Make sure you don't convert it. Make sure you don't turn from your wicked ways. Because Yah, he's going to hear the call of his children. And he's going to come to their aid. He's going to give them exactly what they need. He may not give you exactly what you want, but he's going to give you what you need. See, we have to learn to trust in him. See, and that's what this whole thing is about. It's about humility. It's about, looking at yourself of a low esteem and trusting in the Most High to come to your need and to show you what's needed and what you need versus what you want. He knows what you want already. And just like any good parent knows the wants of their child, they bless them with some of their wants, but they got to give you what you need first. You can have some candy every now and again. but you're going to need to eat these vegetables. Because if you don't eat these vegetables, then, you know, you're not going to grow right. You understand? You know, so except ye be converted and become as little children, ye should not enter into the kingdom of Elohim. Stop trying to be grown. Stop trying to do things your way. Well, how am I supposed to do this? Well, he gave you an owner's manual for this flesh body. Well, what am I supposed to do? Look in the owner's manual. Look it up. Because I'm going to tell you, the word of Elohim is just like a jar of ragu. Whatever you need is in there. It's in there. All you got to do is seek it out. It's in there. Sometimes it's in black and white. Sometimes it's in principle. But it's in there. Trust me. And if you have too much trouble finding it, then ask for help.
Yeah.
You know, when I was a little bitty boy, you know, and I wanted something off the table and I couldn't reach it, and mom and dad wasn't nowhere around, sometimes I asked my older sister or brother, and they'd give it to me.
Yeah.
See, you know, the thing about being Yah's child, you're not the only child.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, so if you're an only child, you may not be able to relate to what I'm talking about, but if you have siblings, then I'm sure you can.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you need a little help from a brother or sister.
That's right.
You know, you may be going through this thing, you may be learning of it. That's just like going to school. You may be learning of it, and you may be getting picked on. But when you got an older brother or sister, you know, they come to the rescue. See, that's what this thing is about. It's about waiting on him and doing it his way. Convert. Turn from your wicked ways. Well, what is wickedness? Well, wickedness is a sin. It's sin. What is sin? Sin is transgression of the law. What is law? Torah. As well as these teachings and instructions that we're going over right now. That's what it is. So convert and become as little children. Before you do anything, see what Yah has to say about it. You know, when you was a little child, you couldn't, you know, you were just 4 years old, you know, well, in my household, you couldn't just go to the store. You couldn't just go around the corner.
Right.
You couldn't even just leave off the porch.
Right.
You know, so what make you think you can do whatever you want now? Come on, you gotta really think about this thing, because you know this is real. You know, so Yah is asking us to humble ourselves as little children. And those who humble themselves the most will be the greatest in the kingdom. You know, that's why he was able to use Moshe or Moses so mightily.
Yeah.
Because it speaks of Moses. It says Moses was the most humble man on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah.
During his time. How about that? And Yah used him mightily.
Wow.
Used him to bring down pharaohs. So, you know, don't tell me about, you know, Yah taking a long time to answer your cry. Hurry up and wait. If you in a rush, hurry up and wait. So here it is. We see the answers to the question is identifying humility as the #1 character trait required to enter into the kingdom of Elohim. We're called to have humility, even that of a little child. You know, as well as trust. You know, the child get attached to the parent. Yah wants you to get attached to him. He wants you to get used to asking him, you know, before you do anything. You know, we couldn't even just go in the refrigerator and get what we wanted, you know, at a certain age.
Right. Right.
I mean, we literally had to ask to do everything.
That's right.
But that's what Yah wants us. It says that King David had a heart after Yah. If you look at the account of King David or King David, you'll see before he went against the Philistines or any other ites, he used to ask Yah, should I go do it, Yah? And if Yah told him, yeah, then he looked at his married band of men and told him, mount up.
That's right.
and Yah was always with him. You know, so that's how this thing looks. Verses 6 and 7 of Matthew chapter 18 says, "But whoso shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me." Which little ones he talking about? He talking about the ones who done converted and became as little children. The ones we were just talking about. Those who are trusting in him. You know. And he says, "But whoso shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and that he were drowned in the depth of the sea. Woe unto the world because of offenses, but it must needs be that offenses come. But woe to the man by whom the offense comes." You know, let's see, this is big here. You know, this picture right here, in case you're wondering, this is a millstone. You know, this is what he's talking about hanging around somebody's neck. You know, this is what he's talking about. It'd be better for you to put this around your neck and be drowned in the depth of the sea. This is what he's talking about. You know. Now he said, you know, he's speaking about the world. He said, "Woe unto the world because of offenses." You know, because they gonna come from the world. See, because the world is at enmity with Yah. Y'all know that, right?
Yeah.
The word teaches that who's ever friends with the world is enemies to Yah.
Yeah.
You know, and I know it's hard, to lose that best friend, but you got to choose.
Yeah.
You know, you can't walk this walk correctly and offenses not come. That's what I want you to get from this, because it tells you, for it must needs be that offenses come. You can't walk this walk and offenses not come. You can't walk it correctly, I should say, and offenses not come. You know, persecution, I think it's 1 Timothy 3:12 or 2 Timothy 3:12. All that shall live godly shall suffer persecution. It didn't say some of them. It didn't say, this one or that one. It said all. So, when the last time you've been persecuted? I'm just saying. See, but don't worry about the world, because, when they do come up against you and they do bring offenses against you, Yah said, it would be better for them to tie a millstone around their neck and be drowned in the sea. See, it'd be better for them to do something like this. Yah's not playing. You just think about any natural parent. You go over there and you start messing with their baby. You start messing with their baby and trying to hurt their baby. What they gonna do? So, here it is, our Heavenly Father, He the biggest, baddest in the universe.
Yeah.
So, who want to really mess with us? I mean, there's some out there that's stupid enough to do it, don't get me wrong. But Yah has us. See, and that's what we have to trust and know. We have to trust in Him and know who He is and who we are in Him. So when we convert and become as that little children, I know I'm just a little babe. But I know He know that I'm just a little baby, and He know that He got to defend me. He know when the enemy come that He needs to be there to defend me. If you see a bug coming towards your baby, what's going to happen to that bug? They going to get squashed. And I'm here to tell you, as big as the L we serve, anything that comes near us is just like that bug. That's how big an L we serve. And He going to squash anything that try to harm us. You can take that one to the bank. Matthew 18:8 says, "Wherefore if thy hand or thy foot offend thee, cut them off, and cast them from thee. It is better for thee to enter into life halt or maimed, rather than having 2 hands or 2 feet to be cast into an everlasting fire." Now, this verse begins with the word wherefore. In the King James, it's translated as wherefore, but it isn't the best translation. The word is day, number 1161 in the Greek. And it essentially speaks to but, on the contrary, or on the other hand. And it's continuative, meaning and, also, or moreover. You know, such as we see used in verse 15. When we look at verse 15 where it says, moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, that's the very same word. And the reason this is important and I'm pointing it out is because where Yahshua, this is where Yahshua is changing focus. See, here, with these passages, he's speaking about the world offending his little ones. Okay? And here, moreover, on the other hand, on the contrary, now he's talking about if thy hand. So this is a part of the body. He's talking about the apostles or the disciples. See, because the apostles or the disciples, they made up the ecclesia. See, and now he's talking about, yeah, if one of y'all that's talking about y'all want to be the greatest, if one of y'all offend one of these little ones. You know, he's saying, you know, if thy hand, you know, which speaks to, is he's not talking about taking out no knife and amputating your hand. That's not what he's talking about here. The hand represents, you know, the healer that's in the body. The one that's doing miracles, the one that's healing. Yeah, even if thy hand, even if the healer that's within your midst offend thee, cut him off. Or thy foot. You know, that would be someone such as myself, a pastor, you know, someone that's leading and guiding you. You know, if they offend, if they offend in the body, then you got to cut them off for the sake of the body. It is better for thee to enter into life halt or maimed rather than having 2 hands or 2 feet to be cast into the fire. So he's saying, look at the overall situation and make the right determination. Now, if we look at Matthew 18:9, it says, if thine eye offend thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee. It is better for thee to enter into life with 1 eye rather than having 2 eyes to be cast into hellfire. And the eye is speaking of the apostles, or even the apostles themselves, the ones who sent forth, you know, and was able to perceive the whole plan of Elohim. You know, so he's instructing us what to do when one of these parts offend the little children of the kingdom. He's letting them know right in their face, you know, y'all see, you know, everybody try to portray him like he was soft, but he letting them know right there in their face, you know, yeah, if one of y'all get out of line, then the rest of y'all cut that person off. See, because the ecclesia is the hands and the feet and the eyes, you know, and the arms and the nose and the mouth of the body. The Messiah is the head. You know, he's the brain. He's the one that controls everything. But even if one of them got out of line, cut them off. No one's above reproach within this ecclesia. Amen? Let me have my next read verses 10 through 14 of Matthew 18.
Take heed that you despise not one of these little ones. For I say unto you, that in heaven their angels do always behold the face of my Father which is in heaven. For the Son of Man is come to save that which was lost. How think ye, if a man hath 100 sheep, and one of them go astray, does he not leave the 99 and go unto the mountains, and seeketh that which is gone astray? And if so be that he find it, verily I say unto you, he rejoiceth more of that sheep than of the 99 which went not astray. Even so, it is not the will of your Father, which is in heaven, that one of these little ones should perish.
Okay, now, did you catch that in verse 10? It says, take heed that ye despise not one of these little ones. You know, these ones that done converted and became his little children. For I say unto you that in heaven they're angels. Did you catch that? They're angels. You know, even though Yahshua went to be with the Father, you know, he had, you know, our Father, you know, you ever had your parent leave the house for a while? You know, and, you know, they don't just leave the little children by themselves. They leave them with a babysitter. Amen? You know, and that's the Ruach HaKodesh. You know, that's your angel. You know, your messenger that he leads you with. And he looks out and trusts and believes. You know, he works for the Father. He's going to report back to him. It says, for the Son of Man come to save that which was lost. You know, and even if he have 100 sheep, even, you know, we know he has a lot of kids, you know, but he knows all of them. And if one goes astray, he's going to get them. And he's going to rejoice when he finds them and bring them back in. You know, so what Messiah is telling them, you know, that's the way it is, you know, with all his children, even these little ones that convert and become his little children and trust and depend on Elohim. So he's warning us not to despise one of these little ones. He's warning the ecclesia, those leaders that's in the assembly, that's in the body of Messiah, not to despise the little ones. You know, you see a lot of this going on now today. You see a lot of the little ones can't even go close to the ecclesia or well, I shouldn't say that, to the ecclesia, but they can't even go close to the pastors or the ones who's supposedly leading them.
Yes.
You know, if you do that to a child, the child gonna have a type of complex. The child not gonna be right. Child need love.
Yeah.
You know, you can't do that. You can't, especially when they infants, they need love. They need to be close to mom. They need to be hugged and kissed and caressed.
Yes.
You know, and this is a real important part of them coming into being and becoming a healthy child. Now, so he's warning us. Don't despise any of these little ones. And this word despise is kataphronio in the Greek. It means to think against or disesteem. You know, that don't mean that nobody's not going to get on your nerves. Because kids have a knack of getting on your nerves at times. But they also have a knack of putting a smile on your face, too. You know, they can be a ball of joy. You know, but they can be a ball of frustration at times, too. You know, but overall, it's a wonderful thing, is it not? You know, when you weigh it out, it's a wonderful thing. So, you know, Yah said, do not despise, do not even think against or disesteem any of these little ones. You know, don't do it. Let me have my next read verses 15 through 17.
Moreover, if thine brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thine brother. But if he will not hear thee, then take him with thee 1 or 2 more, that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established. And if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it upon the church. But if he neglect to hear the church, let him be unto thee as an heathen man and a publican.
Okay. Now, Matthew 15 through 17. These passages right here, they give us the protocol concerning when one of our brethren offends us. You know, so you see, it's actually transitioning again. You know, first he was talking about when the world offend one of these little ones. Then he was talking about when the leaders offend one of these little ones. Now we're talking about, you know, when a brother or sister offend another brother or sister. You know, we're talking about sibling rivalries right here. Okay? But it also goes with, you know, if the eye or the hand, if they offend too. This is the protocol in the body of Messiah as to what to do when you are offended. You know, and you know, some of you done came to me and told me this, that, or the other, and I turned and asked, have you done the Matthew 18 process? You know, for you to go out, those of you who don't know the Matthew 18 process, this is it. This is the Matthew 18 process. This is the protocol for the body of Messiah. Now, I don't know what you do when you used to do when you was in the world. You know, see, but in the body of Messiah, this is how things work. Would it be wise as serpents and gentle as doves, for one? You know, so, you know, some of you may have been fighters out in the world. Somebody offend you, you hit them in the eye. You know, that's not how this work here. Let me get that clear. That's not how this work here. You know, in the body of Messiah, it's a lot different. You know, your brother should trespass against you. What does it mean by trespass? This word is hamartano, numbers 264, and it means to miss the mark, to err, to be mistaken, especially morally, to offend, to miss or wander from the path of uprightness and honor. You know, now the issue, I want you to get this clear, because this is important. Now the issue is not, the issue at hand is not the intent. You know, it's not saying, well, if your brother intended to offend you. You know, the issue isn't the intent. It just says, moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against you, not if thy brother shall intended to trespass against you. It could be totally by mistake. But the point is, you're offended. You feel that you've been trespassed against for whatever reason. So, he's saying what you do is you go to him one-on-one. Just between thee and him alone. And if he hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother. But if not, it says, but if he will not hear thee, then take with thee one or two more, that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall be established. And if he neglect to hear them, then tell it unto the church or the ecclesia. But if he neglect to hear the church or ecclesia, let him be unto thee as a heathen man in the public. Okay? In accordance with Scripture, it matters not the intent of an individual. You know, I can't stress that enough. See, because so many people, you know, first thing come out their mind, I didn't mean to do it. But that's not the point. The point is, your brother or your sister is offended. You know, so it matters not the intent of the individual, but rather the feelings of the offended one that is involved. For example, say that you travel abroad and you due to spend a few nights with one of the brethren at one of the brethren's house, right? Okay, your plane land down, touchdown, and he picks you up from the airport first thing in the morning, and you guys hang out all that day, even until the late evening. Had a great time, all that good stuff, right? Now, when you guys get to your brother's house, someone had broke in and made a mess of it. You know, y'all come through the kitchen door, come through the garage and enter into from the kitchen door, and the kitchen looking like this. You know, somebody done broke in and made a mess of it. You know, y'all leave out the kitchen, go into the living room, and y'all find it like that. They was gonna take the puppy, but he had the mange, so they left him alone. You know, but they done made a mess of the house. And seeing that it's late, the brother decided to just secure the house and go to bed and make a police report in the morning. So he said, this is what we're going to do. We're just going to lock everything up, you know, put something over the broken window or what have you, and make a police report in the morning. Well, the next morning, you arise early, and you decide to help the brother out by cleaning up. But he awakes and humbly come to you and express that you should have asked him first. Yeah, he knew the place was a mess, but he felt you should have asked him first. He said that you trespassed against him in doing so. Yeah, that's what he said. And he then asked you to please, just could you stop cleaning? Because he wanted to have the police come and dust for prints, and you cleaning all the prints up. Okay, now please note within this analogy, the trespass wasn't intentional, but it occurred all the same. You understand? You getting the point of this? The simple fact that the brother was upset, annoyed, or resentful of your actions is what matters, not why. He was upset, annoyed, or resentful, and not whether or not his reasons were valid or not. You know, it doesn't matter if he was right or wrong. That's not the point. They could have just as well have been that he resented your cleaning of the house because he liked clutter. Hey, this is the way I live. You visiting me, you in my world. Again, it matters not what you think of his reasons, but what does matter is what you decide to do from the point of the offense. Now, will you be as that little child? Will you humble yourself and hear your brother or not? Even though you think you're right. Maybe you think you're right, but police, well, they weren't about to, come on, man, really? They weren't about to take no prints. You know, you see this house, you see where you live? You in the hood, they not about to take no prints, bruh. You know, you can call them, but you know, they not about to come take no prints. You're tripping. You need to cut it out. You know. See, but it's not the point of whether or not that they right or wrong. You know, you may feel they wrong. You may, man, look at this. You know, it ain't like it's not like it's all that to begin with. You know, but that's not the point. The point is that your brother's offended, and it's at your expense. Now, what you gonna do? Are you gonna humble yourself and hear your brother or not? You know, it could just be, it could be anything. That's the point I'm trying to make. It could be anything. You know, I can't stand when you wear that sweater. You know, could you please not wear that sweater no more? It just irritates me. Really? Okay, bro. I'm not gonna wear the sweater around you no more. If I know I'm running into you, I'm not gonna wear the sweater because that's the type of love I have for my brother. You know. You know. Yeah, that's an extreme example. You know, but I'm trying to make a point here, and the point is you're to esteem your brethren higher than yourself, even as the word teaches. You understand? You know, so it's really not about the reason why, yeah, they could be cuckoo as a Bessie bug. It don't matter. They still one of the brethren. They don't convert. They don't became as one of these little children. And unless you want to find yourself in a fate such as, where did it go? Like that. Unless you want to find yourself, you know, with a fate such as that, trying to make up for something like that, you know, you can't do that. And that's the whole point. I don't care, you know, he or she got some little scraps anyway to begin with, and you know, and what you feel about the situation really don't matter. It's about what you're gonna do. You done offended your brother or your sister. You know, and what Yah is telling us is to humble ourselves. Humble ourselves, you know, and Him. You know, so that's what he's speaking to here. Now, he goes on to tell his apostles. Now, it's important that you understand who he's speaking to because this verse always gets misinterpreted. Always. I shouldn't say always, but most of the time. I don't like, you know, absolutes, you know, because Yah's the only absolute. Amen. You know, the mass majority of the time you hear this verse is usually getting misinterpreted, though. But it says in 18 through 20, verily I say unto you, whatsoever ye bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. And whatsoever ye loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Matter of fact, that pertains to this whole passage in all actuality. Again, I say unto you that if two of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven. For where two or three are gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst. Now I want to ask y'all something. I want you to be honest. I want you to think about it for a second. Have you ever got together with another brother or sister in the faith and y'all prayed for something together and it didn't come to pass? You know, so is the word line? Because it says, let me see, I think I still know how to read it. It says, Again, I say that if two of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done. That is shall, right? Yeah, shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven. For where two or three are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst. See, the reason that this is misinterpreted oftentimes is because people don't have a true understanding of who the ecclesia is or who the church is when the word is speaking concerning the church. You know, when in the Brick Kind of Shower or the New Testament, when it speaks to the church, it's not speaking concerning everyone. You know, and that's what hangs people up. You know, he's speaking to his disciples specifically. You know, that's what it tells you right there when you start off in 18:1 that he was speaking to his disciples. Right? We haven't transitioned. He's still speaking to his disciples. Now, you know, you have to ask yourself, well, what is a disciple? See, because the disciples made up the church or the ecclesia. You know, and yes, a disciple is a learner, a pupil, a student. But a disciple of Yahshua is more than just a learner, a pupil, or a student to Yahshua. You know, there was criteria that Yahshua put in place for one to become a disciple. But that's a different chapter in another book. But I just want you to hold on to that. Put it on the shelf for a while. You know, I don't want to get too far. Okay? Now it says, for where two or three are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst. Two or three what gathered in their name? Who is he speaking to? The disciples. And like I said, there's criteria in place for becoming a disciple. If you haven't fulfilled that criteria, then I'm sorry, you are not a disciple. But I'm a learner, I'm a student. Yes, you are, but you're not a disciple of Yahshua. Why? Because there is certain criteria that's been put in place that you must meet before you can be considered a disciple of Yahshua. You can be a disciple, you can be a learner, you can be a pupil. But in order to be a disciple of Yahshua and become, you know, part of what the scriptures call the church, which translates to the ecclesia, unless you met that criteria, then that's not you. So that's why you get together and with a brother or sister, and Yah doesn't give you what you ask. It's not that let the word be the truth and every man a liar. It's not the other way around. So, verses 18 through 20 carries forth the thought from verse 17. The day that's being spoken of is in reference to the church, which is the ecclesia. And ecclesia meaning a calling out, or an assembly called out in the Greek. You know, this is number 1577 in your Strong's. And verse 18, therefore, deals with the authority of the assembly. See, that's what this is talking about when it says, talking about this binding and loosing. It's talking about the authority that the ecclesia has. Yes, whatsoever the ecclesia shall loose shall be loosed. Loose in the earth shall be loosed in the heaven. And whatsoever the ecclesia bind on earth shall be bound in the heavens. Now, that doesn't speak to every John and Jane Doe. It's important to understand that. You know, now, verses 19 and 20 deals with the size of the ecclesia. See, because, you know, you can have, in other words, he's letting us know, you know, what's the smallest the ecclesia can be. So he's dealing with the size of the ecclesia, and it's teaching us that it matters not the size until you get to like 2. It can get all the way down to 2, even if it's 2 to 3 members in the ecclesia. Whomever or whatever they bind or loose in the earth is bound or loosed in the heavens. But again, that's pertaining to the ecclesia. Everybody still with me? Now we're going to talk about this ecclesia of Yahshua. Now, what is the ecclesia of Yahshua? First, we shall determine just what an ecclesia is. We went over it just a second ago. Ecclesia, number 1577, an assembly called out. It's actually, ecclesia is a compound word. You know, in the Greek, it's ek, meaning out, and kalim, meaning to call. So, to call out. Now, y'all could have used many other Greek words besides ecclesia to refer to his assembly. He could have used agora, number 58. He could have used panaguris, trugao, sustrepho, seligo, sonothrosio, oglopio, herote, koinon, theasos, all meaning or including the concept of assembly in one way or another. But he did not use any of these. He chose ecclesia. And the reason he chose ecclesia is because it spoke to what he was doing. He chose a particular word because it had a particular meaning. Yah doesn't just use words arbitrarily.
Yes.
You have to understand that. The word ecclesia was understood as a political term in Yahushua's time. It was not just an assembly, but the lawful assembly in a Greek city of all those of the rights of citizenship for the transaction of public affairs. You know, this was taken from R.C. Trench, Synonyms of the New Testament. And we're going to look at some other references concerning this. But ecclesia is as an assembly of a regularly summoned political body. I want you to get that. An assembly of a regularly summoned political body. This comes from the lexicon of war, art, again, rich and banker. They call it the God. But political, what does it mean, political? Political body. Political means of or relating to the government or the public affairs. A picture should start forming in your minds, in your hearts and minds, as to what an ecclesia is. You know, it was a political body. Political meaning of or relating to the government or the public affairs. Well, the government of public affairs of what? The kingdom of Elohim, which was the gospel they were going around preaching. They wasn't going around preaching saying, hey, the Messiah about to die and stay in the grave 3 days and be raised up, you know, for your salvation, to cover your sins. That's not what they were saying. They were saying, repent, for the kingdom of Elohim is at hand. Better come on in. Better get in while the getting is good. That's what they were saying. And they were saying, hey, here's the king right here. That's him right over there with that little child. You know, so it was an assembly of a regularly summoned political body. Political meaning of or relating to the government or the public affairs. Ecclesia, the word ecclesia throughout the Greek and Hellenistic areas always retained this reference to the assembly of the polis. In the ecclesia, every citizen has the right to speak and propose matters for discussion. That was taken from Colin Brown's. Now, what does it mean? It says, always retained this reference to the assembly of the polis. What is a polis? A polis is a city-state. What is a city-state? A city-state is an independent state. That's real important for you to grasp. An ecclesia is an independent state. Independent of what? Independent of the world. Hence they are called out. What are they called out of? The world. They were a political body, meaning of or relating to the government or the public affairs. The government or public affairs of what? The kingdom of Elohim. You got to understand and be able to see the parallel that the Messiah didn't do anything in which Moshe didn't do, because he was the prophet like unto Moshe. That Moshe said, even himself, me, you shall not hear. But the one that's coming after me, that's like unto me, he you should hear.
Yeah.
And we know that was Messiah, and he was like unto him in that he delivered all of humanity from out of the world, even as Moshe delivered all of Israel out of Mizraim or Egypt. But what was he delivering them into? What did Moshe deliver them into? The kingdom of Elohim. He arranged and set them up right there in that wilderness. He arranged them by tribes, 4 to the east, 4 to the west, 4 to the north, 4 to the south. Told them which ones to go out first, which ones to go second. Y'all walk in this formation at all times. They wasn't just out in the wilderness, just scattered all over the place. No, they were structured. They were organized.
Yeah.
And within the midst of them was the tabernacle, the presence of the Most High there.
Yeah.
See, that was simply a picture of you and I in the spiritual wilderness. Walking in a structured army of the Most High El, with his presence within our midst. See, if anybody would have came from the north, east, west, or south, all they would have seen was the tents of the people. That is the flesh. Just like somebody look at you, all they see is the flesh. See, they wouldn't have been able to see what was inside the flesh. They wouldn't have been able to see the tabernacle of Elohim. They would have only been able to see the flesh. See, but within that flesh was the presence of the Most High El. And within you is the presence of the Most High El. Don't you know that ye are the temples of Elohim? See, you have to understand this thing. You have to be able to put 2 and 2 together. It's not 5. They've been telling you 2 and 2 being 5 for the last 2,000 years. I'm here to tell you, it's time for the truth to resurrect itself.
Yes.
2 and 2 is 4. If he was the prophet like unto Moshe, then that means he done what Moshe did.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he wouldn't be like unto him.
Yeah.
And what he was doing, he was calling us out of the world, the kingdoms of the world, into a political body. Political meaning of or relating to the government of the public affairs. An assembly of the polis, if you would. Polis being a city-state being an independent state. See, you have to understand that the kingdom of Elohim is independent of any other kingdoms of this world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't need, neither is it asking for any help from any of these other kingdoms.
Hallelujah.
That whole kingdom is as a little child, and it's dependent upon Yahweh Elohim and his son Yahshua. See, you have to understand this, otherwise you're not going to ever understand salvation. You're not going to ever understand how this thing really plays out. See, they done duped us. They done hoodwinked, led us astray. See, but Yah's waking his people up. He's calling you to come out of that darkness into his marvelous light, where you can see and understand what this thing look like. And I'm going to tell you in one word what it looked like. Impossible.
Yeah.
Yes. That's exactly what it looked like. Impossible. Just as impossible as it was for 2 million plus people plus animals and a whole host of other stuff out there in the middle of a wilderness, surviving for 40 years in a place that was uninhabitable, where no food grew.
Hallelujah. Yeah.
You have to understand what this thing looks like. Impossibility. That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
It looks impossible. See, but you have to also understand that we serve a big L.
Yeah.
We serve an L of miracles. Why we don't see those miracles? Because we don't have a need to see them. We're not dependent on him. We're dependent upon ourselves, or we're dependent upon the state of Michigan, or we're dependent upon the United States.
Yes.
We're not dependent upon Yahweh Elohim. So there's no need for him to rain manna from heaven. There's no need for him to bring water from a rock.
Yeah. Yeah.
Messiah said, seek ye first the kingdom of Elohim. But everybody I knew when I was coming up, whenever they need help, they sought social services.
Yeah.
I look and I see from the social service office lines down the block trying to get a block of cheese. Shame! Shame on you. When we have an Elohim that's willing to give us all the riches of the earth.
Praise God.
Yeah.
When is the prodigal son going to wake up? When is the prodigal son going to stop wallowing in the mire with the unclean pigs and go home to the Most High El?
Hallelujah.
Don't you know he's waiting there for with a robe and to put on a feast for you?
Hallelujah.
That's what the Feast of Tabernacles is about. He's waiting for his son to come home. You have to understand what an ecclesia is. It's a council, not to be confused with council. Yeah, I know they sound just alike, but don't get them confused. See, because a council is an assembly of men summoned or convened for consultation, deliberation, and advice, whereas council rather, just to emphasize it, council is to advise. Anybody can be a counselor and advise you. That don't mean they're going to advise you rightly. You know, but there takes more than one in order to be a council, hence where the 2 or 3 are gathered. Council, an assembly of men summoned or convened for the consultation and deliberation and advice. And also for the sake of clarity, deliberation means to carefully consider. That is mutual discussion and examination of the reasons for and against a measure, as the deliberations of a legislative body or council. So you have to understand what's being taught here. You have to understand what the word is teaching you. It's teaching you that the ecclesia is a council. You know, that they exist for your consultation, deliberation, and advice concerning the kingdom of Elohim. They don't bother themselves with the kingdoms of the world. They don't bother themselves with no other governmental entity. You got to understand that. You know, a council, you know, could be your pastor. It could be an evangelist. It could be a brother. It could be a sister. See, but a council looks something like this. You know, they're a legislative body. They come together to deliberate. That is to carefully consider, you know, and come to mutual decisions and examination of the reasons for or against the measure. See, they supposed to come together and see what the word has to say. See what the Ruach HaKodesh has to say. See what Yah wants to be done in a situation or circumstance before making a determination.
Yeah.
See, you have to understand, this is what an ecclesia does. And they dead. They're not around right now. See, but, you know, Yah is raising his people up, and I feel in my heart that he's also awakening his ecclesia. That is one day soon we're going to look and see they're going to be back on the earth again. See, because the scriptures declare it. It prophesies it over and over and over again if you only have eyes to see.
Hallelujah.
Now, let us take a look at Acts. In chapter 4, verses 36 and 37, you know, the reason we're going here is so you can see that there is a distinction betwixt the believer and the ecclesia. Because I know, you know, I don't want you to take nothing, you know, that I say just as is. You know, go check it out. Do your homework, because trust me, I've done mine. You know, so go check it out. Here it is in Acts 36 and 37. It says, and Joses, who by the apostles were surnamed Barnabas, which is being interpreted the son of consolation, a Levite, in another country of Cyprus, having land, sold it, and brought the money and laid it at the apostles' feet. Now, this is the very same Barnabas that we see running around with Paul, you know, and doing mighty things, right? Okay, this is when he became a part of the ecclesia. It says, having land, sold it, and brought the money and laid it at the apostles' feet. This is what he did. Okay, and he was accepted. He was in, you know, and not saying that, now this was one of the criteria, not that it was the only criteria. So don't get it twisted. There's more to it. And like I said, that's a different chapter in another book. You know, but this was a part of it. Now, we go, turn the page, and we're in Acts chapter 5. Okay, and verses 1 through 6 says, but a certain man named Ananias with Sapphira, his wife, sold a possession and held and kept back part of the price. His wife also being privy to it, and brought a certain part and laid it at the apostles' feet. But Cephas or Peter said, Ananias, why hath Satan filled thine heart to lie to Ruach HaKodesh, to keep back part of the price of the land? While it remained, was it not thine own? See, it wasn't that they had to even give it to him. It was your own. You can do what you want with it. You know, see, but they wanted to become part of the ecclesia. But they didn't want to meet the criteria. They wanted to cheat their way in. See, that's what this story is about. You have to understand, you know, why what's about to happen happened. While it remained, was it not thine own after it was sold? Was it not in thine power, thine own power? You could have still done whatever you wanted with it, brother. Why hast thou conceived this thing in thine heart? Thou hast not lied unto men, but unto Elohim. And Ananias, hearing these words, fell down and gave up the ghost. And great fear came on all them that heard these things. See, you have to understand, see, when you lie to the ecclesia, you're lying to Elohim, because they are the ambassadors of Elohim for the kingdom of Elohim. They're the ambassadors for the kingdom. You have to understand that. This is why Ananias died, and this is why later his wife died. Because they conspired, they co-conspired to cheat their way in to the ecclesia. Which is the same as saying, cheat Elohim himself. Not realizing that this wasn't a council of men. This was a council of men in the name of Yahshua. That is, in the authority, character, and reputation of Yahshua. And he was not about to let his reputation become tarnished. Amen. He was not about to let his character become tarnished. Amen. You have to understand that. And Ananias, hearing these words, fell down and gave up the ghost. And great fear came upon all them that heard these things. And the young men arose, wound them up, carried them out, and buried them, right? Verses 7 through 13. And it was about the space of 3 hours after when his wife, not knowing what was done, came in. Now here comes his other half. And Cephas answered unto her, tell me whether ye sold the land for so much. And she said, yea, for so much. And Cephas said unto her, how is it that ye have agreed together to tempt the spirit, the Ruach of Adonai? Behold, the feet of them that have buried thy husband are at the door, and shall carry thee out. Then fell she down straightway at his feet, and yielded up the ghost. And the young men came in and found her dead, and carrying her forth, buried her by her husband. This is not nothing to play with.
That's right.
You have to understand that.
That's right.
This is not nothing to play with. The ecclesia was not about any games. They were the ambassadors of Elohim. They are the ambassadors of Elohim. And they're to be respected as such. And that's what this is showing. Verse 10. Verse 11. And great fear came upon all the church or ecclesia, and upon as many heard these things. Now, I want you to get this. This is a big part of the reason we came here. And great fear came upon all the ecclesia, and as many as heard these things. Y'all with me?
Yes.
And by the hands of the apostles were many signs and wonders wrought among the people, and they were all with one accord in Solomon's porch. Now, this is the one I want you to take home with you. And the rest, there's no man joined themselves to them, but the people magnified them. Did you get that? Yeah. It says, and the rest, there's no man joined themselves to them. Who is them? The ecclesia. Great fear came upon the ecclesia. That's the subject, right? And of the rest, there's no man joined themselves to them, but magnified them. Talking about the ecclesia, right? Y'all still with me, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Verses 14 through 16. Now, and believers were the more added to the Adonai, multitudes both of men and women. Hold on, wait a minute. Let's back up. Rewind. You see, verse 13, it says, and the rest, there's no man joined himself to them, speaking of the ecclesia, but the people magnified them. It just said no man joined themselves to them, to the ecclesia, right?
Right.
But the very next verse says, and believers were the more added to the Adonai, multitudes both of men and women. So how are these believers, well, let me finish the passage. Insomuch that they brought forth the sick into the streets and laid them on the beds, that at the least the shadow of Cephas or Peter passing by might overshadow some of them. There came also a multitude out of the cities round about unto Jerusalem, bringing sick folks and them which were vexed with unclean spirits, and they were healed, every one. Now, why did they want Cephas or Peter shadow to pass over them? Because he was the head of the ecclesia. Upon this rock I shall build my ecclesia. You know, I shall build my kingdom. Now, ask yourself, if there's no difference betwixt the ecclesia and the believers, then how could believers be added to the Adonai, that is to Yahshua, but not be added to the ecclesia? How do you explain that? Are y'all with me? Now, we read here, right here in verse 13, and the rest, there's no man joining himself to them, speaking of the ecclesia. But the people magnified the ecclesia, magnified them, speaking of the ecclesia. Verse 14, and believers were added, the more were added to the Adonai, multitudes of both men and women. How can multitudes be added to the Adonai as believers, but not to the ecclesia? There's only one way. There are two different things. That's the only way. They're two different things. You have to understand that. You know, there's many that will have you believe that everyone is equal. No. I'm sorry. Everybody couldn't be Moses. Everybody couldn't be Joshua.
Amen.
You think they didn't want to be?
Yeah.
But they couldn't.
That's right.
For many are called, but few are chosen.
That's right.
Now they all was called out of the world. They was all called out of Egypt, even as all of us are called out of the world.
That's right.
But then there was a certain group that was chosen.
Yeah.
The Levites. They were chosen.
Yes.
Moshe was a Levite.
Yes.
The high priest Aaron was a Levite.
Yes.
All the Levites were Levites. You know, and Yah separated them and said, don't even count them with the other ones. I don't even want you to count them with them.
Oh, we, yeah.
When everybody else received an inheritance, he told them, I'm your inheritance.
Oh, wow.
And that Levi means joint to. That's why they don't get no inheritance, because they're joint to Yah.
Wow.
See, in the ecclesia, it's nothing but the spiritual Levites, those who are joint to Yah. See, and he utilizes them to go and teach the body. Even as the Levites was sent and had cities throughout all the 12 tribes. Why? So that all the 12 tribes would have a light
Yes.
to follow, so that they wouldn't have to walk in darkness. You have to understand the picture that's in the old, because if you can't understand the picture in the old, you're not going to be able to understand the picture in the new. Because it's not nothing new. It's renewed.
Amen.
See, when you renew something, you know, I once brought a 78 Mustang and turned it into an 85. I renewed it. You could say I renewed it. Stripped it all the way down, put everything else, put all new stuff on. Now, when I was done, it looked like a 1985, 86 Mustang. But it still was a 78. It still had the same frame and everything. Same engine, all that. But it looked like something new. See, you got to understand, this is not nothing new, it's renewed. You got to understand that. If you don't get this, you're gonna miss out on salvation. I'm trying to tell you. This is huge. This is huge. You know, everybody, Yah's not doing nothing new. The whole point of him going through all this, you know, and us having scriptures so that we know what to expect. So we don't have to be guessing. We know. All we got to do is look at the story, see what's going to happen next. Find where you are, and you know what's about to happen. Why you think he went through all that? People fail to realize whenever they're talking about the word or they're talking about scripture in the New Testament, they're talking about the old. Because the new was still being written. They ain't had that.
Yes.
All they had was the Old Testament scriptures. Let every matter be established out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. Amen? We just read that, actually, didn't we? Hebrews 12:23 also bears witness to this. Hebrews 12:23 says, to the General Assembly. This is who he is addressing. To the General Assembly. A. And the church or ecclesia of the firstborn. B. Which are written in heaven, and to Elohim, the judge of all, and to the ruachs or spirits of just men made perfect. You see 2 different groups here. The General Assembly, i.e. the believers, and the ecclesia of the firstborn. The Levites, they were the firstborn. Yah said, I'm going to take the Levites instead of the firstborn.
Yes.
They're going to be to me as the firstborn. You got to understand that. This is because it's the same thing. The ecclesia is as those firstborn. That's why Apostle Paul is referring to them as the ecclesia of the firstborn. So you have the ecclesia of the firstborn and you have the General Assembly. 2 distinct groups. Now I know this may sound strange or foreign, but the truth oftentimes does sound that way when you first hear it. You know, it is what it is.
Yes.
You know, I can't help it that it sounds foreign. I didn't grow up in church. Y'all taught me what I know. You know, so that may be why it sounds foreign. I don't know who taught the person you learned from originally. But here we're going to learn this word. And this word is calling a distinction betwixt 2 groups. And it's clear to see. Well, I think it's clear to see anyway. But let me have my next reader read verses, well, I'll read 21 and 22. The next reader read 23 through 27. It says, then came Cephas to them and said, Adonai. Now remember who Cephas is. Anybody remember who Cephas is? Who is Cephas? Head of the ecclesia. Got to keep that in mind. Because Cephas is a very important character in the Brit Kadashah in the New Testament. You know, because he represents the head of the ecclesia. Then came Cephas to him and said, Adonai, how often shall my brother sin against me? See, he's trying to get ready for his ministry, for when Yahshua be gone, he know what to do. You know, Adonai, how often shall my brother sin against me and I forgive him? Till 7 times? Yahushua saith unto him, I say not unto thee until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. See, now, when you take these passages and you put line upon line and you put precept upon precept, line upon line, and here a little and there a little, you know, it'll take you back to Cain and his descendant Lamech. You know, both committed murder and was worthy of death. And Yah's decree was that vengeance is his and nobody bet not touch him. And if you do, for Cain, he said, I will take vengeance on him 7 times. And Lamech said, well, hey, Cain killed 1, I killed 2. You know, so he'll take vengeance on him for 7 times, he'll take vengeance on me 70 times 7. You know, you have to understand that this passage is speaking, you know, in conjunction with Yah's vengeance. And essentially what he's saying is, it's not for you to defend yourself. It's not for you to take vengeance. You know, when Yah takes vengeance on your behalf, he'll punish your enemies 7 times worse. You know, and if they continue to want to offend you, he'll punish them 77 times worse. See, but again, he's the one that issues the punishment. You know, You ever catch your two of your children, the older one beating up on the younger one? And here it is, you come in the room and you just, as soon as you walk in the room, you see them socking them. Bam! And all you hear is, ah! You just crying. Now, do you tell the other one, you tell the older one, now you just stand there and tell the little one, smack the crap out of them? That's not how you do that, is it?
No.
You handle it. The parent handles it. The parent issues out the discipline. Amen?
Amen.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Our Heavenly Father, He wants to discipline His.
Yes.
You ain't create nobody. You don't have dominion over nobody. You only have dominion over what He allowed you to have dominion of.
Yes.
The Creator has dominion over His creation. He created us. I wish you would call yourself gonna whoop somebody. I do the whooping around here. See, this is the tape Yah has. He disciplines His own children. He don't need your help. They His too.
Yes.
Just because they heathens, they baby kids, they still His.
Yes.
That's why He reign on the just and the unjust.
Yes.
Let me have my next reader read verses 23 through 27.
Therefore is the kingdom of heaven likened unto a certain king, which would take account of his servants. And when he had begun to reckon, one was brought unto him, which owed him 10,000 talents. But for as much as he had not paid, his Adonai commanded him to be sold, and his wife and children, and all that he had, and payment to be made. The servant therefore fell down and worshipped him, saying, Adonai, have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. Then the Adonai of that servant was moved with compassion, and loosed him, and forgave him the debt.
Okay, something I forgot to mention, but the subject has just transitioned again. See, now when you're reading, you don't have to pay that much attention to this stuff, but when you're studying, you gotta have an eye for detail. Now, you do recognize that the subject just changed, right? Do you? What did it change to? I thought y'all seen with the transition. What is the question Keeper's asking? Forgiveness, exactly. The subject has just went from offenses to forgiveness. Now he's talking about forgiveness. How many times shall I forgive him? 7 times? So y'all gonna have to wake up. So the subject is forgiveness. Now, what do you think this parable is in conjunction to? Forgiveness, absolutely. All right, so here it is. Yah is saying the kingdom of heaven is likened unto a certain king, which would take account of his servants, and when he had begun to reckon, one was brought to him which owed him 10,000 talents. That's a lot of talents. Number 10 speaks to the law of Moshe. Torah. 1,000 speaks to maturity. In other words, he's saying you should be mature. You should be nice and mature in keeping these teachings and instructions. And that applies to us. We should be mature in keeping the teachings and instructions of Elohim. Why? Because we have all of Scripture to refer to, the old and the new. We seen how they done it in the old, we see how they done it in the new. Which apostle didn't keep Sabbath? Anybody? All of them kept it. Exactly, trick question. You have to understand that. You have to understand that. Because the enemy, he's smooth. See, people don't give him credit. They think, he going to come running up on them with some horns up coming out his head with a pitchfork and some pointed tail. You know, that's make-believe. That's Hollywood. In reality, he gonna come to you, you know, with a black suit on with a little white square in front of it. He gonna come to you with a prayer shawl over his head. Hello, somebody. I'm just keeping it real. You know, they turn themselves to, you know, the angels of light, do they not?
Yes.
No, this is the most dangerous place you can be.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
that's real.
Wow.
I know it is, but it's real. You know? So you better make sure that the light you follow is light. Now, he goes on in verse 25 and says, for as much as he had not to pay, for as much as he had not to pay, his Adonai commanded him, be sold, his wife and children and all that he had, and payment be made. Now, again, like I said, you know, that's speaking to Torah, speaking to the teachings and instructions of Elohim. Now he's talking about selling them. Don't you understand? You know, the definition of sin, the Brit Kadashah teaches us that the definition of sin is transgression of the law or transgression of Torah.
Yes.
You know, now, when you transgress the law, you're in sin. Sin is a type of debt. Hence, he owed 10,000 talents. When you don't pay that debt, then, you know, you don't have the money to pay it, and guess what? You got to work it off. That's how it goes. That's why it had to be sold. They're being sold into slavery. You know, he was about to sell them into slavery. But the servant therefore fell down and worshipped him. You know, we're all debtors.
Yes.
Every last one of us.
Yes.
And if we want to be forgiven, we ought to fall down and worship Yahshua. Saying, Adonai, have patience with me, and I will pay thee all.
Hallelujah.
What do we own? Obedience,
Yes. Hallelujah.
which is better than sacrifice.
Yes.
Yes.
Then Adonai, that servant, was moved with compassion
Hallelujah.
and loosed him and forgave him the debt. He's no respecter of person. He's done it for them. He'll do it for us. Amen.
Amen.
My next reader, verses 28 through 35.
But the same servant went out and found one of his fellow servants, which owed him 100 pence, and he laid hands on him and took him by the throat, saying, pay me that thou owest. And his fellow servant fell down at his feet and besought him, saying, have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. And he would not, but went and cast him into prison till he should pay the debt. So when his fellow servants saw what he had done, they were very sorry and came and told unto their Adonai all that was done. Then his Adonai, after he had called him, said unto him, O thou wicked servant, I forgave thee all that debt because thou desirest me. Should not thou also have had compassion on thy fellow servant, even as I had pity on thee? And his Adonai was wroth and delivered him to the tormentors till he should pay all that was due unto him. So likewise shall my heavenly Father do also unto you, if ye from your hearts forgive not every one his brother their trespasses.
Okay. Great lesson to be learned here. I said, but the same servant, just the same fellow, just got forgiven. Amen.
Amen.
Went out and found one of his fellow servants. You know, fellow servant. Key word there. Which owed him 100 pence. The number 100 represents the elect of Elohim. You know, so this is a fellow servant, a fellow elect one of Elohim, you know, one that's in the body of Messiah. Owed him 100 pence. And he laid hands on him and took him by the throat, saying, pay me that thou owest. And his fellow servant fell down at his feet and besought him, saying, have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. Sound real familiar, don't it?
Yes.
And he would not, but went and cast him into prison till he should pay the debt. Now, how about that? You know, and don't frown up at this, because many of us would have done the same thing. You know, many of us look at it, well, that's the whole reason I ain't had the money to pay my debt, because you're not paying me. If you'd have paid me, I would have been able to pay him. I wouldn't have got collared. See, but you have to understand, that's not the attitude that us believers ought to have.
Yeah.
Now, that's the natural attitude to have, you know, but we're called to be supernatural, amen?
Amen.
You know, we're called to be spiritual. We walk in the spirit. See, you have to understand this. And besides, you know, this is a fellow servant. This is someone that's serving Yah just like you serving Yah.
Yeah.
You know, and when you have to understand, you got to understand what the Messiah said. When you've done it to the least of these, you've done it unto me.
Yeah.
So when you call it that serving up, you call it Yah up.
Yeah.
That's the way he look at it. Because he said, when you've done it to the least of them, you've done it to me, right?
Right.
How dare you call up the Messiah? How dare you not forgive him? And he's forgiven you.
Mm.
So as we see, you know, he done snatched him up and cast him into the prison so he should pay the debt. Now here it is. He got it all twisted all over again. So when the fellow servants saw what was done, you know, they were sorry and they went and snitched on him. Don't think they're not going to snitch on you as well. Yeah, the fellow servants, they're going to snitch on y'all. They're going to start praying.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you see how he treated me. You see how she treated me.
Yeah.
You know, here it is, you know, I don't got nothing for him but love. And you see how he doing. If I had the money, you know I'd pay him.
Yes.
Come on now. Shouldst not thou also have compassion on thy fellow servant, even as Yah had compassion on you?
Yes.
So he said, likewise shall my heavenly Father do also unto you, if ye from your hearts forgive not every one of your brother your trespasses. Even as he taught us to pray, forgive me as I forgive those that trespass against me. See, this is where the subject changed places again, from offenses to forgiveness. Yahshua gave us an analogy to clarify his point of forgiveness. Now, again, take note when the servant, that is, those of the kingdom of Elohim, of the king Yahshua, was a trespasser himself, he humbled himself as a little child. That's what we're to do, and was accepted. When you humble yourself as a little child, you'll be accepted. He was loosed from his trespasses. Again, you know, the ecclesia has the ability to bind and loose. But when he himself was trespassed against, he lost his humility, lost his mind, and was therefore delivered to the tormentors till he should pay all that was due. A point to consider. Without correction and discipline, there cannot be maturity in the kingdom. In order for us to mature in this walk, not to mention remain in the kingdom of Elohim, we must be able to accept correction and discipline for our wrongdoings with humbleness of heart. You know, if someone comes to you and they tell you they're offended, it matters not what the reason why they're offended. You know, they don't like your twisted overshoes. You know, yeah, you may feel like they need to buy you some more then. You know, whatever it is, you know, the point being made, the point that's being made is, when you've offended your brother or sister, do whatever it needs to be done to hear them. And that word hear don't just mean audibly hear, it means obey. So in other words, you really go out your way to try to rectify that situation. Well, that's all I have for you today. Pray it was a blessing unto you.
Hallelujah.